What's up, y'all? Today I want to talk about the power of the gospel, and this video is titled "The Gospel Stands Alone as the Power of God." In the beginning of Romans, Paul the Apostle, he talks about being set apart, that God set him apart for the gospel. He also talks about the gospel in Romans chapter 1 being prophesied about and testified about through the law and through the prophets. And so throughout the Bible, it's all culminating and leading to this gospel that Paul's preaching through all the letters in the New Testament, which is about 2/3 of the New Testament. And Paul the Apostle explicitly says the gospel is all about the Son of God. It's all about Jesus Christ, concerning him and who he is. He also says the gospel is the revelation of Jesus, is the revelation of the righteousness of God, the goodness of God justifying and declaring righteous anyone who believes in the Son. Jesus, in another place in John, says the only work the Father requires is to believe in the one that he sent, Jesus Christ. Another place it says the only labor is to enter into his rest and to enter into the finished work of the cross of what Jesus has done for us in the shedding of his blood, the forgiveness of sins, the reconciliation of mankind with God, and us enjoying his grace, his kingdom, his love in our lives. So I want to bring you back to another video. I'll try to post it over here in the corner where you can read about or listen about soteria, which is this Greek word for salvation that's in Romans chapter 1, verse 16, where it says that I'm not ashamed of the gospel. The gospel is the power of God for soteria for anyone who believes. So that word soteria, real quick, is welfare, prosperity, preservation, safety, salvation, deliverance, and it's all encapsulated in this word soteria. So the gospel is solely the power of God that brings soteria for anyone who believes. And in another place in the Bible, it says, we believe, we have faith by the hearing of the word. And that word is of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ. So throughout our life, we have to hear and listen to preaching. The foolishness of preaching brings soteria, which is welfare into your life, healing, prosperity, safety, soundness, wholeness into a person's life. And so we transform the world through the singing of the gospel and the declaration and preaching of the gospel and simply believing in the gospel, because the gospel is the finished work of what Jesus did on the cross, but it means that God is in us, God is with us, God is for us, God's around us. And there's plenty of powerful testimonies and illustrations of just how powerful the gospel is in a person's life. So I want to bring your attention to Mark chapter 5, and I'll read it starting in verse 1, and it says, "They," which is Jesus and his disciples, "went across the lake to the region of Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of a boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him with chains anymore, not even with strong chains, for he had often been chained hand and foot. But he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet." This man was super strong. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of Jesus. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Swear to God that you won't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on a nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs. Allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the evil spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank and into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside. And when the people went out to see what had happened, when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. So this is the soteria, the power of God at work. This is the power that's in the gospel, the simple hearing of the gospel, believing in the gospel, believing in Jesus. It can come through a letter, it can come through an article online, it can come through a video or a sermon or a podcast. Listening to the gospel has in it the power of God for soteria, for deliverance, for welfare, for prosperity, for breakthroughs. The power of God isn't in anybody else but Jesus Christ, the gospel, and it stands alone as the power of God. And this is a great illustration of that final, sure, true power where Jesus sets this man free, and no one in the town was able to subdue this man, to chain him, to bind him, to stop him. He roamed and screamed and howled in the cemetery, cutting himself. Everyone was horribly afraid of this man. And this man, full of a legion of demons, comes and throws himself on his knees at the feet of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the one who rules in righteousness and reigns through grace. This man throws himself down. Jesus delivers this man instantly, and he is instantly in his right mind, sitting in that place and posture of rest and shalom and wholeness, and dressed in Jesus' righteousness alone. This freaks out the townspeople so much they beg Jesus to leave. So the part I want you to see, and the part that the Holy Spirit emphasized to me, was how sure and true this man's freedom and deliverance was. Because this was a man that was isolated, lonely, and dealing with rejection, abandonment, and so many severe neglect and abuse and just horrors that he had to face, torture that he had to face from all these evil spirits. And yet, when Jesus tells him, "No, you cannot come into my boat and follow me and go with me. What I've given you, this gift of soteria, salvation, of what I've done for you, it's here to stay, it's long lasting, it's everlasting. You don't need to fear it leaving. You don't need to fear those evil spirits coming back to haunt you, because what I've done for you, who the Son sets free is truly free indeed." This salvation is sure, it's lasting, it's more than enough. God with us is more than enough. This man didn't need to hold Jesus' hand through the next couple of weeks to deal with all those past issues that he was dealing with torment, with abuse, neglect, rejection, was instantly done by the Holy Spirit. He was found in rest and shalom, and that was long lasting. Jesus says, "No, you can't come into my boat. Go and tell the world what Jesus has done for you. Become on my team and tell the world your testimony." And so this is the power of the gospel at work for deliverance, for salvation, for soteria, for welfare, is that this man had more than enough in God after he left Jesus. We don't need Jesus in the flesh with us here to walk in the fullness of soteria, the fullness of welfare, prosperity, deliverance, and that sozo. And so that's the illustration I had for you today in the Bible, is that the gospel stands alone as the power of God for soteria. And all we have to do is to listen to it, believe it, and the only work the Father requires is to trust and believe in the one that he sent. And we can't hear this message enough. We can't meditate on Jesus enough, because the more we meditate and gaze on the beauty and work of Jesus, the more we're transformed into his likeness, the more welfare, the more prosperity, preservation, safety, shalom that we walk in. And so the solution for soteria isn't found in anybody else, anything else. It stands alone as the power of God. All right, grace and peace.